Hi everyone and welcome back to the fantasyfootballfix.com YouTube channel with me, Tom Campbell, ahead of Game Week 14, guys. Now, hopefully everyone has had a better Game Week 13 and is looking ahead to Game Week 14 and the festive fixtures. I should say again, push notifications for our elite managers are enabled over at fantasyfootballfix.com. We have got timestamps on the video if you do want to hop around. And this week we've got Mark Mansfield back on the channel to give us his thoughts ahead of Game Week 14. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into it. Guys, welcome back to the channel. As I say, hopefully everyone has had a much better Game Week 13 than some of the misery that we've had beforehand. Mark, you certainly have. We're going to get into that shortly, but how's it all going, man? How's your season been panning out for so far?
Hi, Tom. How are you? Had a really good week this week, as opposed to last week. And this week, I guess the things that really worked out for me were Gordon and Lascelles.
Beautiful
combining in the Newcastle game. Yeah, it was quite nice because I took a hit to get Gordon in last week, and because I did that, I benched Palmer and Tsimikas. So I was kind of a little bit tilted coming into this week and did nothing. And that worked out well, so I'm pretty pleased. Up to around 400,000.
We can see, yeah, man. I mean, like, it's a bit unfair. We were talking off camera, weren't we? The graph hasn't yet been updated because we're recording, guys, on Sunday evening, so there is one more game on Monday to complete. So we've not updated the graph, but you can see the latest rank. Mark's chilling in between sort of 300,000 and 400,000, which represents a massive upswing, which we like to see, there, mate. So you trending in the right direction. You feeling like the season's gonna just continue that way? Feeling positive?
Yeah, one of my kind of aims, I think, at the start of any season is to perhaps be around 100,000 at the turn of the year, and that was looking really unlikely before this week. But I think with a bit of a tailwind, I can get around there by the new year. So maybe this season isn't going to be as bad as it looked like it was going to be in week 7 before I wildcarded.
I remember that. Yeah, gosh, it feels like a long time ago, Mark. We were talking around that, and it was pretty miserable for you and a lot of like the elite managers I've had on. People were sort of despairing at that time, but everyone seems to be finding some form just ahead of these fixtures, festive fixtures. Yeah,
I mean, looking at the Elite 11 league on Fix, like I know a lot of the guys and they're good managers, and I think some of I don't include myself in this, but in some of the cases, the variance that's been dished out to some of the guys it's been horrible. Brutal, really, really bad. I think, someone who sold Gordon for Eze this week, there's no accounting for it because it's not a terrible move. You just get unlucky.
I mean, we literally, Tim and I spent ages last week talking and bigging up Eze right ahead of this Luton fixture, and it was grounded in stats and the eye test observation and what have you, and the transfer made sense in bearing those metrics in mind, and would have been an absolutely brutal swing.
Yeah, it's horrible. And people are benching points and things like that. I think I haven't been doing well this season, relatively speaking, compared to other seasons, but I think it's the most enjoyable season we've had in a very, very long time.
Man. I'm really glad that you've said that as well, because that's how it's felt to me as a sort of someone who's not necessarily enjoyed too much of FPL over the last few seasons with COVID, the World Cup and what have you. It's been, for me, really difficult to consider the game in the kind of traditional way that we were all used to, and it feels fun this season. Like we've talked a lot about, so many options, right, to pick from.
Yeah, I think this is the first season in a while where it feels like you can zig when everyone else is zagging, and it can come off. I was really like fatigued with FPL at the end of last season because everything was so constrained by the fixtures. But this season, it's get Darwin in, it's fun. People have had all kinds of differentials left, right, and centre, and it's fun. It's harsh. It can be brutal. But it's more like what FPL is meant to be like.
Love
in my
it.
opinion.
Totally agree. And sitting here as a Douglas Luiz owner, I've benched, let me just think, 24 points from him in 2 game weeks over the course of the season. But then I've also picked up a couple of lovely hauls from him. So it's the risk you take with mixing the team up, right? And choosing these kind of, like you say, differential options. For me, it's what the game's about, and I absolutely love it. And hopefully all the viewers concur as well. Mark, you've already given us a nod to your Game Week 13 side. So let's take a look at how those points have shaped up. We've got one more game ahead, but you don't have any players from there. So we're going to take a look at, guys, at an impressive Game Week 13 score for Mark. Cool. So this is how it all shaped out then, Mark, ahead of game week 13 and going in and look at those Newcastle boys coming through for you. That must have been pretty special to have seen all of those points. And Jermaine Lassalle picking up a lovely 7-point haul at the back there for you.
Yeah, that Chelsea Newcastle game was it was the live 3 p.m. game in Ireland, so I was watching it, and the Gordon cross came in, and I was just so delighted by Gordon getting the assist that I completely neglected who had scored, and I assumed it was Isak, and then I heard the commentary and it was Lascelles, and I couldn't believe it.
No kidding. I don't really know what he was doing up there, but yeah, it's magic. It's another great FPL moment, isn't it? Let's talk about the defence quickly. So, I mean, very, very... Were there any clean sheets were few and far between, certainly this game week. I guess Man United just picked one up just now, and you're a Man United fan, of course, I remember. So another positive there. But, I mean, looking at that defence, if we... goalkeepers, to me, Mark, it suggests that we're not looking to spend a lot, right, strategically. Kind of happy ripping money out of the goalkeepers for now?
What I'm thinking about is if I can raise a little bit of money and just hang on to it, 0.5 for a while and hang on to it. And the next time that I have a transfer to burn, I might do something about the goalkeeping situation. Either bring in an alternative to play alongside Areola or upgrade Areola, because I know we've all written off this one position in your team, but it feels that kind of attitude in amongst the community is an opportunity that maybe if you do make a move on your keeper and if you hit it, then that can be a nice little edge for you. So I'm thinking about doing something about my goalkeeping situation, but it's a luxury kind of thing to do right now, as you point out.
Anyone in mind? I love
much.
That, first of all. A little potential edge there, as you say, people may have been neglecting it. Is anybody, maybe not necessarily a player, but a team that you think looks good over the festive fixtures in terms of potential clean sheets or save points?
I haven't looked into it too much. I think if I could, I'd probably just go, and this doesn't make sense considering they've just conceded 4 in consecutive games, but I'd have a look at Sanchez just for the pedigree of the team. They get a fixed return, and I think there's quite a bit of upside there. You could imagine two or three clean sheets over a period of time for Chelsea. Kaminsky's all right. I think Leno would do all right. I think just to have an alternative. Yeah,
Leno's liked by the fix algorithm projections, isn't he? Historically, they really do sort of favour him, don't they, as well?
Absolutely.
Nice one. All right, let's talk about this defence then. The person I'm, of course, intrigued by or interested in getting your thoughts, I'm sitting here as a Matty Cash owner as well. See him in your team there. 45 minutes, 0 points, booking. There was a slight injury doubt as well. Not been great for a while. What's going on, man? It's to owners of Matty Cash, what's your advice?
I think the reason you keep Matty Cash is kind of inertia. There's where do you go unless you've got money to get up to Saliba or Paro, which I don't. We can talk about it a little bit, I guess, in the context of my next week moves. If you look at my squad there, I'm not sure who I'm moving on except for Cash, but 4.9 and below, not really interested in anybody. So I'm not going to burn a transfer. I'm not really interested in replacing Cash for little upside. So that kind of forces me to do something a little bit more spicy, maybe.
Yeah,
that I wouldn't otherwise do.
We don't want to second guess. We'll come on and look at your bus team ahead of game week 14 in a few moments, Mark, as well. And look, and you sitting there with 2 free transfers, so going to get your thoughts around that as well. But yeah, intriguing. Any thoughts around potentially Man United? I mean, I watched the game today, and it's a seemingly resounding win, but I mean they conceded a bunch of chances as well. You're a Man United fan, Mark. What do you make about this Man United team defensively right now? Any interest from an FPL perspective?
I think they're all right defensively in general, but I think they've got Newcastle, Spurs, Liverpool coming up soon.
It's a tough run, isn't it?
I think the fullback situation is unclear. I think the centre-back situation is unclear.
Tough run, isn't it?
No, I think they're getting today's result was,
beautiful.
Was a wonder goal, penalty, a lot of near misses by by Everton. I wouldn't read too
Fair.
much into that
Okay.
one, to be honest.
This midfield looks tasty to me. Mark, Gordon's picked you up a handsome haul there with 13 points. Looked excellent, didn't he, against Chelsea? Gave Reece James an absolutely torrid afternoon, didn't he? Saka, I'm sure you're super happy with. Salah, of course, as we know, is an ever-present an FPL darling as well. Talk to me about Heung-Son Min. I didn't see the Spurs game today, so I'm not sure how that game played out, but are you comfortable with Son in the team at the moment?
I think I'm in isolation. I'm happy with all 5 of those midfielders, but I think the obvious move this week. Well, the majority of moves are going to be for Brian and Bumo. I don't have a pain-free way to get to him, and given that there's nothing else for me to do there. I mean, the 3 forwards seem fine. The 5 midfielders are fine, and everyone in defence except for Cash is fine. So as you alluded to, I probably need to think about which of these midfielders I'm not too happy with, and the one that I'm not actually happy with is Saka. I think.
Why is that, man?
Because he's just not shooting. He's not taking shots, and it's hard to score if you're not taking shots traditionally. Now, he gets 8 points, and it's hard to complain. But I'm not even tempted to sell Son. He had 3 goals that were ruled out for offside. The wind is blowing a different way. 1 or 2 of those can go in. So he's just up front. He's got no Europe. Yeah, we know how good he is. I think a lot will sell him this week, and I'll probably bench him this week.
We'll look at that in a moment.
But moves like this are one of the reasons that I like to have the strong front 8 coming into Christmas.
Of course, should point out, of course, you've got Cole Palmer sitting there as a sub 1 in for game week 13, but for 14, I'm sure we'll be seeing a blue shirt in a few moments' time. That front 3 looks cool as well. Obviously, Haaland, we don't need to talk about. You comfortable with Ollie Watkins? People have talked to me on this series, Mark, about Villa's more difficult fixtures now. Still comfortable with him for the festive period and potentially beyond?
He's one of the people I might sell this week. I think he's good. He's tapping away. Yeah, he's not on penalties though, and I think if you look beyond this Bournemouth fixture, you're looking at Manchester City, Arsenal, Brentford, and then a very juicy fixture in 18 against Sheffield United when he's a captaincy candidate given the absence of Haaland. So I'm kind of working on a little plan around getting maybe Watkins in and out in the next 4 to 5 weeks. It's just forming today, so it's half baked. But
well, I mean, we're going to come later on in the video. We're going to talk about the FantasyFootballFix.com's consensus 11, guys, which I'm sure you as viewers will know about. But this is basically showing the sort of most owned players and popular players, and see how that 11 is currently shaping up on FantasyFootballFix.com, and get Mark's thoughts around whether or not that's likely to change, whether or not anyone's going to come into that 11. So we'll look at that in a few moments. You've kind of alluded to plans though, Mark, so I think it's a good time to look ahead in terms of your bust team for Game Week 14 and to get your thoughts around the 2 free transfers that you have in the pocket. Okay, so this is Game Week 14 preview, guys, ahead of a nicer looking set of fixtures. I think we were all a little bit disappointed to come back from that international break ahead of Game Week 13 and see some fixtures that were pretty indifferent, but that's not the case this time. Look at all these lovely home fixtures for your players then, Mark. Great to see another new graphic for Finn to have built for Taylor with the home game against Sheffield United. So you're actually thinking that he's going to be preferred to Matty Cash. Let's start there. Is that going to be the case come Game Week 14? You confident about that pick?
No, I'm not confident. But if you're not going to have a little bit of charity home to Sheffield United, when are you going to have?
They looked bad, didn't
they? No, I think Lascelles. I might put in Lascelles just to mitigate Trippier to a degree, but I'm not against putting in Taylor because Sheffield United just don't have much. But I don't care about my defense. I
Well, I,
just don't care.
yeah.
There's 2 clean sheets. 10% of teams got a clean sheet.
It really is. So, I mean, strategically, does that just mean that we should all just be looking for simply the people who have the most potential attacking upside over fixtures? Because it seems like clean sheets are just so difficult to get. And historically, I remember that being increasingly the case over Christmas, where the fixtures are just so frequent and you get tiredness and injuries and fatigue.
Yeah, I think Paro is the one I'd look towards if I had to get anyone. I don't have money for him. Saliba's a good pick, but I don't like having double defense. I probably look at Paro. He's on all the set pieces. He hit the post again today for one of Son's disallowed goals. I had him a few weeks ago. I kind of sold him out of necessity. But I'm happy to just bench cash. I can afford another price drop on him.
Yeah,
play Taylor or Lascelles.
Mate.
There's not much to be gained.
There's not, which leads me to my question, right? So you mentioned a few moments ago then, Mark, about potentially looking for an opportune time to use sort of creative thought to amend goalkeepers. Is this a good time to potentially do it ahead of this game? It doesn't feel like there's a lot wrong with this team.
No, I have no money to do it. That's I have zero in the bank. To me, I'm not going to spend 2 transfers on 2 defensive moves. It's just I'd rather go after guys who can get
no temptation to go Son to Mbumo and then use the slush fund there.
Yeah, I could do it. I think if I did that, I'd keep rolling that transfer as long as I can.
He's got a nice fixture, hasn't he, in 14?
Yeah, no, I mean this week, fine. With Areola, I think the things that are options for me are getting in Mbumo somehow, and I think that would have to involve getting rid of in a single move either Saka or Son, and the one there, and it might be slightly surprising, maybe I'd sacrifice Gordon, because Newcastle play Tuesday. Then we're coming into the period, 3 games in a week. It's a big ask for him, I think, and we know Brian and Mbeumo will play every game in the 3 games in a week period. So how do I get to that? I have to downgrade Watkins, and Watkins has got Europe, and it's a similar move to get Solanke. Solanke's going to play. I'm buying 2 penalty takers, maybe. 2 guys who are going to play the 3 games, fitness permitting. It's a bit of a risky one because I'm selling 2 players who returned this week. But I think such high wire antics are necessary to forge ahead.
Absolutely, yeah.
At this
nice
point.
To hear that from an elite manager as well, advocating for that type of attitude ahead of a period which is normally so difficult to navigate. So I like that. I like that definitely. You did mention. Go on, Mark.
Well, Baron, I'm full of big talk now. But
we'll be watching on the blog thoughts, and the push notifications I'm sure will be enabled for all of our viewers as well. So we shall see whether or not this video plays out to a reality come game week 14 kicking off for sure. I mean, you did mention the Watkins difficulty in fixtures sort of prior to the game week 18 captaincy option as well. Feels quite difficult to move him on ahead of the Bournemouth game though, right?
Yeah, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a bit of a risk in this, but maybe Solanke, is equally as good. But yeah, okay. So it's not good to sell Watkins, but I'm getting Mbeumo, and he could really kill me this week, and in week
they've got a nice
16
run,
as well.
Definitely this Arsenal game, and I thought they actually acquitted themselves well. I don't know if you caught that game up, but I did watch that one. I thought Brentford played well. They are a good team at home, aren't they? And he still looked threatening in that one as well. Got to ask you about the captaincy. Mark's noticed it's on Mo Salah here. Nothing weird about that in a home match against Fulham, but just interested as to strategically how you've been going with that. Has that been something that you've been rotating freely, or is this a complete change and deviation from Haaland? What's your approach been to captaincy so far this season?
No, I've switched between Haaland and
Pretty familiar.
Salah a fair bit recently.
Okay.
I've had Son one time, and it's never really worked out. Going away from
No,
Haaland has never really worked out.
you're still prepared.
But there's something quite there's something not quite right about the City attack at the moment. I think Doku is very exciting. He does a lot of dribbling, but there was one occasion on Saturday when Doku had the ball like in the inside left channel, and Haaland turned his back and started running towards the penalty spot. And when he got there, he still stood there with his back to Doku, who still had the ball. He wasn't expecting a cross, even remotely. He was more worried about his positioning for the phase as it went on, rather than getting in position for an immediate cross, because he knew it wasn't coming. And I think Doku's affecting Alvarez a little bit as well. It's just the City attack just isn't there right now for whatever reason. It's close. It's really close. Like, so I'm not saying they can't score 4 in any game, but it's just not. There's something a little bit crooked in it. I think.
mean, there was talk, wasn't there? I'm sure you saw on social media ahead of the early game against Liverpool in Gameweek 13 that Alvarez was actually intended to be left out by Guardiola ahead of that fixture, and it was only sickness to Grealish that prevented that from happening. Do you think that's the sort of thing it's going to take to kickstart that creativity and make them more effective? And do you see that change being something that Guardiola might roll with ahead of certainly Game Week 14 in a game against Spurs, which historically, for whatever reason, results-wise, they've struggled with?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what it would be like for the other players on the team if both Doku and Grealish were on the pitch, because they both like to keep the ball. So I think it'd be really interesting to see. But I mean, obviously there's not a lot wrong with City's attack, but I don't mind backing against Haaland with Salah. Salah Anfield is a very different proposition to Salah away from home for me.
Mark, can I get your thoughts? I know he's not in your team there, but a lot of the managers watching, and certainly a lot of the FPL community at large, will still own Alvarez. Is he a sell for you with the blank in 18 and what you've just said with the sort of stop-start nature of City's attack, or them not quite firing on all cylinders right now?
Yeah, I think he is. I think I have him there. I think Darwin is a nice move for anybody. I think Nkunku is coming. People need to prepare for that. I think there'll be a fire sale on him.
Would you advocate for a sort of move to Dominic Solanke for people who can't necessarily quite afford like a Darwin? I mean, he's been so good, hasn't he? But it might be too far in the rearview mirror, right? It might be sort of people sleeping on it a little bit in terms of Alvarez's performance.
Yeah, I think people have been of the opinion for a while that he's nailed, and I think they've got a clear warning shot that maybe he isn't, and probably not something that I would ignore. I think Solanke in isolation is, I wouldn't, it's what you do with the money. I think people are going to need to find some money to get maybe cheaper midfielders up to Mbumo, and that's one way to do it. I think if I had Alvarez, I think I'd go to Darwin.
I like it, and he's
add some excitement to your life. And get Darwin.
A fixture like with the Fulham home fixture. I know we talked about Leno being a nice goalkeeper option there, but you'd fancy them to create several chances for him, wouldn't you? Of course. Mark, that's great. Let's move on a touch now. So I mentioned the consensus 11. So let's take a look right now as to how FantasyFootballFix.com's consensus 11 looks ahead of Game Week 14. Okay, now I haven't included it's not just the same slide, guys. I've not made a mistake here, but you will see a lot of familiar names here. And I think this talks to the ability of our elite managers to corral together a squad, which is, super performance. So you got to be happy with this, Mark, right? This is the consensus 11 ahead of Game Week 14 prior to the Monday night fixture. There's an awful lot of familiar names here, apart from Mr. Mbumo. So does that basically confirm to you that he's got to be your transfer ahead of Game Week 14?
I don't think he has to be, but I think I've had 3 vulnerabilities the last while. Bowen, I got really lucky this week. Mbumo, I wouldn't be too confident that I'd get lucky over a 4-week period. with him. And Trippier, which might surprise people to not see Trippier in there in that consensus 11. So the consensus 11 being the product of all the Elite 11 managers' teams, like an average, if you like. And I guess the reason Trippier is not on there is
too much
a value
perspective.
That
he just costs too much to get everyone else. He's not a bad pick per se, but he's just too much money, definitely. So I've got to ask you then, mate.
Yeah,
so let's try and fast forward. Let's look into the Mark Mansfield crystal ball here. Fast forward a few game weeks. Which names are you seeing disappearing from this consensus 11 by that period? Who do you think's necessarily more of a lock, and who do you think is actually a bit more unlikely to still be here when we revisit this in, say, 4 or 5 game weeks' time?
Cash is a dead man. He's going for a lot of people, I think, inside and outside the consensus 11. I would say, I think Son is safe. Knowing how the guys think, I think Son, he's safe. I know he's a lot of money, but he's up front. He's out of position. I don't think he'll be moved large scale in this elite consensus 11. I think Palmer will become even more established, and I won't be surprised if Saka starts to lose favour. There's an option for me just to go straight from Saka to Mbeumo.
I'd love to see it. I'm not advocating that you do it, but I'd be like, gosh, that's cool if you do it. But yeah, especially ahead of the Wolves game. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's I get it. It's like the thing that I talked about with Solanke and Watkins, but you just can't have them all. And I get rid of Saka this week, and then I walk into Luton next week, and it's just like,
no kidding.
What did I do that for? But to answer your question, I'll say the 3 most at risk in that Elite 11 consensus are Cash, Saka,
and Watkins. Yeah, definitely.
Watkins.
I mean, the 18 fixture looms large, doesn't it, with that blank for Manchester City and the fixture that Villa have, and like you say, is going to be a potential captaincy, and whether or not the elite managers will be like, do you know what, I need to keep him ahead of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's pretty evident stuff, but one of the things you like to do in FPL is get on someone early, but equally important is getting off someone early, and it's a risk. It's far riskier to get off someone early than it is to get on someone early, because you risk looking like a fool, and that's when you take risk, you take it for upside. And I think coming off Watkins is risky, but they walk into City and Arsenal next, Brentford. Maybe it's a risk worth taking.
I definitely do, particularly as you said, there are other viable options as well. It's not like historically in seasons where I've talked to you elite managers and we've been like, do you know what? There's just a dearth of striker options. That's not the case this season, right? Especially as people having operating with 5 in midfield, you don't actually need to find 3 of them.
That's exactly
all right, man.
it.
That's been fascinating as ever. Look, any other thoughts that you want to get off your chest ahead of game week 14? You've had this great game week up to sort of 300,000 and change. Anything else that you wanted to cover?
Not really. I think a few of the things I've alluded to here. I think one important thing is just think about how you feel people will fare in terms of rotation over 14, 15 and 16. It's 3 game weeks in 7 days. I think if you can come out of Saturday, the next round, with 2 free transfers, you should, because the midweek round is traditionally one where we can get some team news. We might have a little bit of team news on Arsenal on Tuesday, and it's nice to have 2 free transfers in a period of high rotation to be able to react. So I think if you can, roll your transfer this week. And other than that, like I know people, I can see some bad weeks out there. I'd say to people, don't overreact. I had a stinker 2 weeks ago, and often if you think if you're feeling volatile, if you think you're gonna do something rash, maybe just step away from the vehicle. Don't make moves when you're tilted. That's my little tip
Love it. There's
of the
been
day,
so
I
many good
think.
sound bites, and that's a fantastic one to end on, Mark, and here, definitely. And it does feel like Game Week 14 should afford people the opportunity to roll that free transfer if they've, because of these great round of fixtures that we've got in Game Week 14, quite different from Game Week 13. Been a pleasure to have you back on, man. Good to see you doing well, and well done on Game Week 13. Guys, do please smash a like on the video on your way out and commend Mark on his ascent up towards that top 100k target for the end of the year, which I'm sure he's going to reach with consummate ease as usual. Guys, we will be back with another video shortly. Obviously, it's going to start to get super crazy with fixture pile-ups that we all love trying to negotiate over the festive period, but we'll be back with another one very, very soon, and hopefully you've enjoyed this one. So do please, as I say, smash a like on the video on your way out. Do please subscribe to fantasyfootballfix.com if you haven't already done so, and to our YouTube channel as we push forward towards 40,000 subscribers, and I'll talk to you all super soon. But without further ado, guys, goodbye.